system by Nepal Academy of Science and Technology, Nepal, in association with TWAS Center and South Asian Regional Partner TWAS-CASAREP, Jawaharlal Nehru Centre Advanced Scientific Research Platform. It is a great privilege to coordinate the program from TWAS-CASAREP ASI. And first of all, I would like to thank Professor and the facilitating for giving this opportunity to coordinate this program. This might be honored by this. So this meeting is dedicated to the exploration of climate change and earth system management. And this particular meeting holds the promise of delivering valuable insights and fostering discussions on the paramount changes interesting our planet that's on today. So without any further delay, let's resume our collective pursuits of knowledge and discovery. So before I go ahead, I would like to it's my great honor to introduce the today's session's inaugural program, the people who are involved. So Professor Dean Preeti, he's a coordinator of the program from the Graduation NAST and the fellow of TWAS. And then the opening remarks will be given by Professor Bengaluru. He's the Vice Chancellor, Nepal Academy of Science and Technology. So I welcome him. And after the remarks will be given by Dr. Max Powell, he's a program coordinator of TWAS. And then I would, again, it's my great honor to invite Professor G. Kurli, the President of the CSR, the host of TWAS-CASAREP, and its committee coordinator of TWAS-CASAREP. So, we is able to connect us with online for the recording message. So in this section, the first session, and then after the session, the first session will be climate change, forest, and biodiversity. And the chair, Professor P.K. will be the chair for this session, and then the second session will be dedicated to climate change strategy and impact. And Dr. Dinesh Raj will be the graduation NAST. He will be one chair for the session. So now, first I will invite Professor D. to start this session or the inauguration program with the welcoming Professor.
Thank you, Suji. This program started. For that, I would like to address Vice Chancellor of the Nepal Academy of Science and Technology. Professor G. President of Jawaharlal Nehru Centre for Scientific Research, Bengaluru. Yeah. Professor D. Krishna, Coordinator, TWAS-CASAREP, Bengaluru. When we say CASAREP, it's South Central and South Asia regional part of TWAS. So CASAREP, TWAS-CASAREP. And then Dr. Max Powell, Program Coordinator of TWAS, the World Academy of Sciences, TWAS. Then all management committee members of this program, all academicians of NAST, dear participants. It's my pleasure to give this introductory introduction of this program. First of all, this program, how it originated was, actually under Professor E. Krishna, this TWAS-CASAREP was started in Bangalore, India, where we have 11 countries that are partners to this program for the TWAS-CASAREP. Headquarters is in Bangalore, and we are so grateful to Professor E. Krishna, who has been really the mentor in a way, he has been, he had leadership right from the beginning to bring this organization to this level. And the Professor Krishna proposed the visionary initiation organize this workshop or this non-scientist meeting after extensive discussion with me and also an NAST. And finally, the program was aptly named as Climate Change and Earth System. So, Professor Krishnan thoughtfully selected Kathmandu as the ideal city, considering its vulnerability to climate change and its location. We all know that climate change is a reality. Everyone on this planet is affected by this climate change, and probably many of you know that Union Secretary General is in Kathmandu, Nepal, right now, currently, and he has visited some of the critical areas in Nepal where these glaciers are free and high mountain areas. He has expressed his serious concerns about climate change and help with to mitigate this disaster worldwide. So you can see how important is this issue that we are facing today in our own lifetime. So with these remarks, I don't want to go into more details about about climate change issues and all that. But before that, I just wanted to have an introduction about TWAS, the World Academy of Sciences. Originally, the name was the Academy of Sciences for the Developing World. It was changing, and finally, it is called the World Academy of Sciences, where academicians from all over the world are members. And currently, we have, and this was founded in 1983 under the leadership of Nobel laureate Abdul Salam of Pakistan by a group of distinguished scientists who were determined to do something for the small state of scientific history of the countries. In fact, there were 35, 36 members, and including one of the very famous scientists of India, now is also the India has honored this. So it's such a prestigious people started this organization. Currently, we have about 1,400 fellows, if I'm correct, and there are also associate members. And every year we have about 45 to 50 members are added from all over the world, and particularly from the developing countries. This plus has been very important in bringing focus on the scientific development of the developing countries. As you know, developing countries have about 80% of the world's population, but it's only 28% of the world's scientists in from these countries. And when you go to the publications, scientific publications, even it is this small. So therefore, it's so important that process be very, very effective in promoting science and technology in the developing world. Currently, the president of TWAS is Dr. Qureshi Abdul Karim from South Africa. He's a very established, well-known scientist, a medical doctor, and the previous president was Dr. Hassan, who served a long, long time to us. With this introduction, I close here, and then we proceed further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Vikriti, for such a remarkable presentation about the class and giving us an introduction about all about the class. So now I would like to invite Professor Dilip Subha, the Vice Chancellor of the Academy of Sciences and Technology.
Thank you, madam. Oh, distinguished president. Broadband so this. all of it. It's also one of them that the three plus values are negative. I see that one time, but then this is one of the most important issues for the whole human. Today, the planetary health begins with the question for economic prosperity and led to the climate change and temporary because our planet Earth is turning uglier. We all are suffering from the consequences of the dying moon in some people. Obviously, Nepal is one of the badly affected countries. It's ironical that the young people are now struggling with the agenda which they in we must take this as a lesson. Our decisions should not only be scientific down and intellectual, but they should also be wise. I urge that you all should honestly consider the ideal of what they want to and constantly raise the voice for and the plan. I very much hope that the young scientists will do their best with the cooperation of senior experts to restore the planetary health and make it workable. I heartily thank the academic system and John Travel for the pain they do to make the people happen. I wish good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Gray. And now we go forward, and I would like to invite Dr. Max Powell, who is a program coordinator of TWAS from Trieste, Italy. So, sir, please give your remarks on the program. Professor Powell.
Thanks, you are there.
Connected with us online.
So next. Here.
No, I don't.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't unmute, but now, can you hear me now?
Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very
Please
well.
tell me if you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Very fine, thank you.
Gee, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. So, good afternoon to you all. And
Yeah.
on behalf of the World Academy of Sciences, a UNESCO program unit, I would like to welcome all participants and especially thank all speakers and organizers. I will not be able to mention all of them. I would just like to express my thanks in particular to Professor Upreti, Vishal Upreti, for all the background work, and of course, the Nepal Academy of Science and Technology for hosting and organizing this, joining forces, however, with the TWAS regional partner in India, hosted by the JN Centre for Advanced Scientific Research, and therefore I'd like to thank Professor Kulkarni in Bangalore. In particular, I would also like to say how impressed I was with this organization and this event and the choice of topic. This topic made me very proud because TWAS in the past years has increased significantly its focus on this topic. For example, earlier this year, TWAS established a committee specifically on climate change, addressing various issues, including ethical issues. But just to say a few words about how incredibly important the topic is, let me mention 3 examples, all from 2023. 2 of them are scientific papers, and 1 is, say, a news article. So to start with, in 2023, in the Journal of Bioscience, a paper was published entitled "The 2023 State of the Climate Report." This was a special report, and the title went on to say, "Entering Uncharted Territory." This is a must-read article. A second example of the kind of scientific work going on this year, published this year in the journal Nature, is an article with the title of which reads, "Safe and Just Earth System Boundaries." And it's not just safe, it says just, because the concept of climate justice and the ethical issues around climate are increasingly being acknowledged, thankfully. Again, this is also a must-read article. But these are just 2 examples of the scientific work going on this topic. Not to say that it hasn't been going on before. Research on climate has been going for well over 100 years. However, the issue is not the scientific one. There are other obstacles. And that's my 3rd example from the news. If you look again, 2023, in September, on the website of the United States NOAA, NOAA stands for National Observatory of Atmosphere, or Oceanic and Atmosphere Administration, Oceanic and Atmosphere. So on their website, there is an article in September 2023, which has a title along these lines. All-time highest number of billion-dollar disasters. So between January and August 2023, so it's not even the whole year, just between January and August, they counted 23 disasters, the magnitude of which is over $1 billion. Now, why am I mentioning this example as a 3rd, say, article to have a look at? Well, because, as I said a minute ago, the science is not the major issue. And in the moment in which nations, especially greatly polluting nations like the United States, are starting to have their economy in jeopardy, then the attention of policymakers towards this topic should increase. 23 of $1 billion disasters up to August is making news. Now, this is very, very sad, of course. It should have made news before, when scientists started to really raise the red flags over this issue, which has been going on for now between 40 and 50 years. But I hope these few remarks will make it clear to all participants, especially the young ones, that ignorance cannot be an excuse. There is a huge amount of data and even policy advice to trigger a change of mindset and a change of path. So with this, I really wish you to learn a lot during this conference and to be inspired and to take on messages to your friends, to your colleagues, to your students. So thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Max Pauli, for such a remarkable presentation on the climate change, which we all are dealing with, and specifically the kind of data you have produced. It's wonderful to listen to you, and of course, many of our youngsters will have no idea about this and would really appreciate it. So again, thank you so much for your wonderful speech. And now I would like to request Professor Gio Kulkarni to speak. He's the president of JNCASR, the host institute of TWAS-CASAREP, and he's an EXO official coordinator of TWAS-CASAREP from Bangalore. And before we play his presentation, I would just like to bring in your notice that personally, I would like to congratulate him. He has been felicitated by Darwin University recently for his remarkable research work and has been given the J.C. Bose Fellowship of Department of Science and Technology, New Delhi. So with this note, I would like to request you, sir, to play his presentation. Professor Kulkarni.
TWAS Young affiliates, speakers, and chairs of this conference. Dear Professor Dilip Subba, Vice Chancellor, Nepal Academy of Science and Technology. Dr. Max Pauli, Program Coordinator, TWAS, TRASTE. Professor Vishalnath Uprethi, TWAS Fellow from Nepal. Fellows of TWAS, TWAS Young affiliates, speakers, and chairs of this conference. Young scientists, research scholars who have joined for this conference. Greetings to you all. I'm happy to extend you a warm welcome to the conference. It's a great pleasure to say a few words during the inaugural session this afternoon. Before I start, I would like to thank Professor Subba, Vice Chancellor of NAST, for readily agreeing to host this international meeting in the hybrid mode at Nepal on the request of TWAS-CASAREP. I also thank Professor Vishalnath Uprethi, Fellow of TWAS from Nepal, for his tireless efforts in coordinating this meeting, being organized in association with TWAS-CASAREP and National Academy of Science and Technology, Nepal, as well as JNCASR, the host institute. The theme of this meeting has been initiated by CASAREP in view of the great importance of climate change. The TWAS-CASAREP is a great pioneer of climate change and has organized 3 such conferences earlier, including one in Dhaka, in association with Bangladesh Academy of Sciences. You will agree that all the countries under CASAREP are witnessing the devastating effect of climate change, such as raising of seawater, abnormal seasonal variation affecting agricultural production, desertification of landmass, and many others. I observed from the conference program that eminent speakers from this region will deliberate in detail all aspects of climate change, and I'm sure the proceedings of the meeting will be greatly beneficial to all. While wishing this international conference all success, I would like to thank Dr. Jayashree S. Bhatt from JNCSR, who has been actively involved in successful coordination of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful remarks, Professor G. Kulkarni, President of JNCSR. So now we will take this meeting further, and I would request for a break for about 10 minutes, and then we will gather again. So we have a wonderful session coming up. This is the first session of a day, scientific session rather. It's on climatic change, forest, and diversity. So after the break, please join us at 2:45 FME time. Thank you so much. Is lecture at the last of our second session. And then I'm really thankful to Professor Adhikari. He agreed to give an invited talk instead of him giving the keynote speaker. So I would now invite Professor Jha to chair the session. Professor Jha.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jayashree. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session. Vasant Adhikari, third one by Indira Pove, and the last one from Nigeria, Dr. Ibrahim Galadi. And each presentation will be 15 minutes, and we will have 2 to 3 questions. And if you have any questions or queries, you can have it in the chat box. We will address that, or the speaker will address it. So with this background, without taking this time, I would like to invite my young colleague, Dr. Achut Tiwari. His exact number you can see. And he's in the Central Department of Botany. Alpine ecology, particularly climate change and forest. He did his PhD from China, Academy of Sciences University. Biodata is given on the book. You can go to that. With this brief introduction of Dr. Tiwari, I invite him to deliver the invited lecture. Dr. Tiwari.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for this. Today I'll be speaking about climate change and its impacts on forest and ecosystem functioning in Himalaya. And so I'm affiliated to Tribhuvan University in Central Department of Botany, and I have been conducting research basically for climate change and response of mountain forest. And this afternoon, I'll be talking about a little bit on background about climate and forest ecosystem, the methods I'm using, and a little bit in the brief about the results on climate change in Himalaya, how trees are responding. For this, we have done both climate relationship at the same time, basin area increment, get some insights and discussion. In a forest ecosystem, we have different changes brought about by elevation in the time, the same time brought about by climatic changes. So we will have no change if the forest ecosystem is functioning very well. Then we have extreme conditions in which the forest trees can die, that alter the hydroclimate variation and ecosystem services and functioning in the mountain landscape. I have the Brian. Trees. Tree, if they are under what is the plan? Let's get with one. Dry landscape, we also have trans-Himalayan zone and drier part. In this sort of landscape, the tree growth is limited by moisture. So we have both conditions like moisture limitation. And in comparison to the higher alpine or subalpine growth, the lower temperature is more exposed to anthropogenic changes. So we have been analyzing how the tree growth is impacted in terms of distance. And this is a temperature-related hypothesis, basically for tree line. If we talk about alpine environment, the tree growth is limited by temperature. And another hypothesis is in many places the temperature tree growth is limited by moisture. And in more like Himalayan conditions, we have this situation more coming as a new phenomenon. Like we got low rainfall, there will be low air pressure, high radiation, and in the meantime, low cloud cover. And the trees are still exposed to higher rate of transpiration and the environment is getting heavy. So this is the more or less situation in Nepal, Himalaya, where we are looking for longer winter drought as a sort of drought space. And if there is low rainfall, these are different physiological mechanisms. They all start with low precipitation, and that ends with a very narrow ring. So if the ring is narrow, the plant productivity is reduced, and there are a lot of geological mechanisms that is related with low rainfall and related scenarios. Is the sound audible? Basically, my study sites are two. One is Himalaya, Central Himalaya, and another in Southern Mountain, China. We have different climatic conditions in Himalaya and Hongkong Mountain, China. So in these two landscapes, we are comparing the tree growth relationship. And I have been doing the research for more than 8 or 9 tree species. They are found in the high mountain areas, including Batula, Pinus, Abies, Suga, and other species also. And I would like to show this topographic structure that we call tree line area, tree-like transition zone, where we have the highest point exhibited by tree species limit, and we have a tree line that is represented by 2 meters tall tree, and the below is the timberline forest, where the trees are luxuriantly growing, and more than 20% area is covered by large trees. And in such areas, the trees are more exposed to environmental stresses. because of slow growing season, and in the meantime, the climatic temperature pressure also. Basically in dendro science, we extract the tree cores, and in annual resolution, we find the ring width in each year, and we just compare this with the climatic data. This is the standard dendrochronological practice. And the tree rings are measured in microscope, and below they're very clearly showing the tree ring boundaries. And here in the picture, I would like to show you the frost ring. In that particular ring, there is a heavy snowfall for a long period of time. Then the tree ring that affected the growth and cambial activity, as a result of which we can see the frost ring. So such episodes we can clearly find from the trees if the trees are exposed in a very much climatically stressed. And in my result, I'll be talking about this bit about the climatic trade of Himalaya. We have a large number of meteorological stations, but the data are very poor. We have data only from 1970 or 75. Still, we don't have a complete data in some of the landscapes. And there is a spatial bias in terms of distribution of the climate stations. Most of the stressful conditions are in high mountain areas, and they are fairly lagged with the nearest meteorological station. So we have a problem to calibrate, because we will have an option to take the climatic data from a little bit low elevation than we are trying to see the signals. And here the graded data or satellite derived data, they don't work in Nepal Himalaya, because we have got a very strong topographic gradients. So the rain shadow area and all those things. So even in a short distance, we have a different climatic zones. And to talk about the climatic scenario in Nepal, basically we have a strong trend of high day temperature, maximum temperature trend, rather than minimum temperature warming. I was checking the temperature records of Tibet and the Hongduan mountainsides, China, in which there is a higher trend in minimum temperature rise. But in Himalayan cases, we have a strong trend for maximum temperature rather than minimum temperature. And in terms of forest growth and hydrological system and water relationship, the increase in higher temperature is more detrimental, because this has a role in increasing evapotranspiration and creating a sort of drought stress, impacting tree. So the overall situation here, I would say, like maximum temperature in the right panel, we can clearly see the trend of maximum temperature increase is high, and the cloud cover, this is denominated by red bars, this is clearly decreasing. So our high mountain areas are very sunny, as a result of which also there is high rate of warming. And in terms of rainfall or precipitation pattern, we have a regional trend, but overall in Nepal, Himalaya, we don't see any clear trend in total precipitation. So even if the precipitation, there is no trend, and temperature trend means we are getting warmer days and our landscapes are getting dry. And this is the preview about how the monsoon system operates in Nepal, Himalaya. We have a different season, 4 different seasonality. And interestingly, our wettest region and the driest landscape in Nepal, they lie very close in the different side of Annapurna Massif. So within a short distance, also we have a very distinct climatic differences. And this will gives us opportunity to explore how the forest in different landscapes, they are operating with climate, or they're responding to climate. And another thing we are talking about very much repeatedly is the extreme events are very much intense in the recent days. So in the past, you can see the extreme indices, they are increasing. And most of the cases, these are creating with a lot of damage. Just before we were talking about the billions of dollar loss due to hazards and disasters, the same situation is coming in Nepal also, that is also shown by the climate crisis and climate trend. So we have more or less warmer days coming, and the more hazardous days, more disasters and more extreme events. Sometimes very high rainfall in a short period of time, long winter drought, or early monsoon or late monsoon, or something different related to this, and higher rate of snowmelt. And this picture I had taken in 2021 in October. This is Annapurna Glacier in Manang, and it is one of the highly rapidly retreating glacier in Nepal, Himalaya. And the evidence shows that even in like about 60, 70 years of time after Tony Hagen took the photograph from the same landscape, our glacier has been retreated more than 17 or 20 kilometers. So the change is very rapid, and we can see some vegetation being established in the glacial tongue and the moraine deposition and the first stage formation of glacial lakes, then again the disappearance of the lake because of deposition of the road. So very rapidly the dynamics have changed. Then I go to my core area of the research. Mainly I have been doing the study to establish a relationship between hydroclimatic changes to forest productivity, because forest productivity is related to ecosystem services, goods provided by the forest, and in the same time, hydroclimatic balance. And so far, these are the tree ring with chronology. Just before I was showing how we derive the tree ring, then we calibrate them. And these are the results from different species in different landscapes. And one of the interesting results I will show here, we have compared the tree growth pattern in tree line, higher elevation and little low elevation. And in both of the cases, the result is same, very interesting. The tree growth pattern, radial growth, has been showing the response to spring season temperature and spring season moisture availability. So here in the bar, I'm showing the response relationship with precipitation, rainfall, and in the dots lines, I'm showing the relationship with temperature. So mostly in the March, April, and May, which is the early growth season for trees in alpine areas, subalpine areas, the temperature, they are showing the negative relationship, negative correlation, whereas the precipitation is showing the positive correlation. So this March, April, and May, this season have been identified as a very critical component for tree growth and biomass creation for trees. And in the same time, I have been checking the different species, and the signal is more or less the same. In the early growth season, temperature has negative influence to tree growth, whereas the moisture availability, basically rainfall, that contributes positively to the tree growth. And this is the recently published paper I have published. This is the tree line dynamics related to climate. And here is interesting result from in Himalayan sites. We have got the evidences of high recruitment. More seedlings, more trees have been established. But in the lower tree panels, these are Chinese sites, Hongduan mountain sites. We can clearly see that very low level of recruitment of species. So there are a lot of news coming like greening around Everest region or greening of Himalaya. This is perfectly reflected by these results. In Himalaya side, one is like establishment of vegetation and trees is going on. And another result, this is from one of my colleagues who is also doing a dendrochronological study in Nepal, Himalaya. This is from Loire et al. 2022. And they have shown the impact of temperature in Everest region for establishment of new vegetation. That is reflecting the ideas of getting more. So the relationship, what we can say is, in some areas there is a negative influence of temperature, but in some areas there is still positive impact of temperature. So this is species specific as well as the site specific results. And another tool I have been using is like every year tree puts on biomass. This is called basal area increment. And here also the similar result has been shown. And in basal area increment, if the trees forest is very young or juvenile, this is increasing. If the trees are stressed, this shows the decreasing trend. But if the basal area increment, they show the plateau or the stabilized trend, this forest is well healthy. So following this model, I have produced one result from tree line and timber line. This is the result from Mustang, one of the dry landscape from Nepal. And in the dry sites, the tree growth has already shown the decreasing trend that we have published as a early warning signal of climate change, because the climate is getting warmer and the tree growth is decreasing already in dry sites. So this type of impacts, this type of evidences will affect whole forest ecology and forest ecosystem. So this is the result of this increment. And later on, we have been doing some experiments in lower area like temperate region. Also in temperate region, we have shown more evidences of human induced effect or disturbance factor in terms affecting tree growth rather than climate. Climatic change is increasing, but the trees of vegetation is not showing any influence still now, luckily in the temperate zones. Like this is the result from Pinus wallichiana. Another one is the, and this important story from the planted population of plant, Pinus roxburghi, we checked from central parts of district, and the tree ring clearly shows the time of resin collection. When the forest users, they started collecting resins, then the tree increases. Such evidence also was found from tree ring studies. And there is a debate still going on, drying of spales or drying of agricultural landscape because of pine plantation in Nepal. So we still don't know what is the exact driving factor for this. Really, these landscapes are getting dry, or they were already dry but colonized by pine. There are a lot of water related studies we have to still do to answer this question satisfactorily. And this picture I took from Scotland to just show the importance of water in ecosystem. Actually, this is a bog, this is a flatter moss reserve, and they make a small dike-like structure in order to conserve water. If there is plenty of water available, then there is very apparent growth of mosses. If trees they establish there is one small seedling, they cut down the trees because trees take all the water and make the landscapes dry. So this type of knowledge also we should know. In all the time, only the forest cannot conserve water. Sometimes they make the landscape dry also. That type of situation also we need to address in future researches. And this is a result from lower temperature still showing some human disturbance signal, not much climatic signals. And in discussion, most of the results I have already told, like spring season is very important. In dry areas, already trees growth are declining, so climate is very much important in terms of forest production and consumption. And in conclusion, both temperature and moisture, they both limit tree growth in mountain forests. And these are site specific and they are related to adaptation of particular species also. And these are some of the references. We saying this much. I would like to acknowledge my collaborator, my PhD advisors. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajat Tiwari. Very nice presentation. The questions. And just explain how the temperature and environment, what's also highlight climate change being in the Himalaya and tomorrow edition of NAST of the Madagascar because of the climate like this. Explain in detail about the climate change being not only in Himalaya but in the single but how this summary, I would like to invite questions, participants, and are there any queries in the reports?
No queries.
Everyone is satisfied with your presentation. Thank you very much for the lots of asking. Please.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. One thing I'm not from the background of building I'm just an engineer. Interestingly, you showed that the tree line is increasing for now because of climate change, because the up there in Himalaya, more temperatures going on. So, but in your one sentence, or something you told that temperature can increase, but the tree growth is getting decreased. When this type of statement, I'm confused whether you are saying that because of temperature rise, the tree line is rising up, the Himalaya is growing, and another sentence is okay, trees are also not being developed or grow. So please just have that what is correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is perfectly captured. So I was showing the two different results. And tree growth decline, this is a story from Bustan. It's already dry landscape. And the dry tree line, what is happening is there is no trend in the rainfall pattern, or sometimes perhaps a little bit decreasing trend, but because of increasing temperature, the area is getting drier. So this is a typical story from the dry landscape. So I have mentioned that in already dry areas, the trees have already started showing the decreased growth rate. On the other hand, other result I showed like greening in high mountain areas, tree line is this is from moist part, moist tree line. So tree line are also two types. One is a dry landscape tree line where moisture as well as temperature are important. But in already moist cases, when you go like 4,000 meter plus elevation sites, and in these cases for the early establishment, the increased temperature plays a positive role. But it is still not clear whether these established trees, they are very young right now. They are in a sapling stage or seedling stage, but it's not certain that they will all establish as an adult tree. So it is still had to be confirmed. So in dry areas, the trees, they are having negative influence of the temperature change. But in already moist landscapes, sometimes the northern aspects, there is a better favorable condition for tree establishment. So we have both conditions. And in my tree line study, most of the studies are focusing dry areas. So in dry areas, I'm showing the signal of mass and tree line temperature negative signal and rainfall positive signal. So this is site space.
Sir, I have also one question. Yes. Sir, what are the 5 different points that the youngsters like me should take as a conclusion of this presentation?
So for youngsters, there are a lot of rooms to study climate change. Sometimes I used to call like Nepal is an open laboratory for exploring different, like one can do the response of trees for climate change in elevation gradient, like in lower, my result also just so in lower elevation areas, the tree growth is more limited by moisture supply because there is a high density of trees. But in high elevation, like 4,000 meters, you can find the temperature signal, the positive impact of temperature for trees damage. So there are a lot of things we can do. Still, we are not capable to find the human disturbance related impact on tree line establishment of tree. It is very difficult to separate which one is the climatic impact or which one is the human induced impact. So this domain also we can do. And another also like comparison of same species in different slope, that from by using tree also we can do analysis. And sometimes we can do the climate scientists, they have already got the record, like 1999 was the driest year or 2010 was the wettest year. In this particular year of time, how the tree growth is performed. If one is really interested to check the anatomy, cambial activity, diameter of the vessels, we can do some pointer year analysis also, particularly focusing the driest year or wettest year, then we can do further analysis. So I think in terms of relationship of tree growth, because trees are very honest, they capture the climatic signal and they preserve it, and in different questions we can try to answer, we check these three things. My research and my experience says.
Thank you very much. Right. So the next presentation. Excluding result for estimate of this reduction in the bias. There is also a digital professor at University of China. When we start with the start, the of the powers, climate change, it's like the direction. First, Dr. Rajikari, present.
Listen, sorry. Me to the talk on this auspicious occasion. Thank you very much. I'm the center currently working in the Center for Disaster Studies. So I'm also doing my PhD the World Academy of Sciences. Today I'll take you to the Himalayas, which is a very unique mountain in the world, where we are witnessing different hazards. And these hazards showing compounding cascading hazards in nature. So this is the a beautiful example of Melamchi debris flow, where you can see this debris flowing in the Melamchi River, and you can see this complex interaction of these hazards within the natural ecosystems and infrastructure development. I mean, this is not the only case in the Nepal Himalaya, and we are observing this throughout the Himalayan chain. So some of the major drivers, which is strong monsoon with erratic rainfall and long dry winter, actually this dry and wet cycle actually trigger the landslides and debris flow in the Himalayas. Another one is that Himalaya is seismically active, so that we have lots of regular seismic stabilization. And then thanks to my colleague Achut that he showed the climate pattern, and in the context of natural hazards, these climate extremes are happening here. And then the throwing action of permafrost, forest fire, and then the anthropogenic activities in this part of the world. These are the major drivers among others. So this photo is quite unique because I took this photo in February 21, 2022, where I observed more than 1.5 feet of thick pile of this hailstone. And this is very unique because I was grown up here, and this is very unique for me in my whole lifetime. So, I mean, this is quite related with this changing extreme climate in the Himalayas. So these two pictures actually taken from Rongbuk glaciers and the Inja glacier with the course of 50 years of almost 70, 80 years time. You can see the glaciers are already melted and this glacier looks already formed. And this is the risk that we are actually holding in the extreme climate. This is a very unique paper that my colleagues they wrote in 2019. Here you can see this glacial formation in the whole Indus Himalayan chain, and you see this the lake quantity, and then the lake area. And then, very interestingly, most of these lakes are concentrated in the central Himalaya, where we are living actually in Nepal. I'll show you one beautiful example. This is the within the Paling Gorkha district. This is a glacial lake, and just downstream of this lake is a village called Sama. And just imagine if glacial lake crossed, what would be the situation here in Sama? And this is the only one cases among others that we are facing, or we are expecting the negative consequences of this climate change and the glacial conditions. So Here, I just took the one picture from Roger Wilhelm. Here you can see if you fix India, and then you can see the different numbers. Actually, these are the tectonic moment reactions or the millimeter per year velocity measured by GPS. And it shows that Himalaya is very, very susceptible to. So that's what we are expecting or we are experiencing different kind of updates in a different part of this region. And if you look on this picture here, you can see different years and then the magnitude. And then you can easily imagine that we are expecting large earthquakes in the Himalayas. For example, in the Western Nepal, since 1505, we didn't have large earthquakes, and we are expecting these earthquakes. It happens anytime, it might happen anytime. So we have to be really, really careful while understanding these natural hazards and the disasters in the universe. So I'll show you some of the examples from different part of this island. So this is the Hunza. Actually, I'll show you some pictures later on in Pakistan, where they observed the glacial lake of this flood. And this is the Chamoli, where in India, this is the large rock slide and then destroyed the hydropower, and we lost lives and properties. And this is the Pokhara setting in 2012. We had witnesses that devastating event where we lost more than 70 people. And here in Chile, and this is one of the largest landslides in Asia, where we lost more than 150 people and we blocked the river for quite some time. And another one in particular in 2016, where lake was crossed in the Tibet, and then you can see this the flood devastation effects. I'll show you one little analysis later on, then you'll understand. And this is the Melanchi, and you can see the before and after image taken from drone, and so it's explain you the devastation and the scale of events that we are witnessing in the Himalayas. And then the recent this Ronak Lake crossed, and it destroyed the actually 1200 megawatt dam of reservoir. And these are some of the examples that we are witnessing in the whole Asian island. See, if you look some of the examples of, for example, let's say this is the Hunza Valley, and this is one of the very crucial and important reefs that was collapsed by the glacial lake outburst. This is the Karakura. This reef is in the Karakura Island. You can see this, the backbone of the development of these water resources under the destroyed. Actually, here you can see in this remote sensing image where you can see this, the changes in the pattern of this glacier. Another one is Chamoli. Here you can see this. You see this the rock slide rock here, and in this picture will have the rock. So the large chunk of rock mass just slided down, and then here this mass, and then created the momentum and the energy, and all this ice and maybe just moved down and then destroyed the whole hydropower chain in this system. Very beautiful example. This is Pokhara Valley in the part of central Himalaya, where you can see this beautiful peaks, pistons, in Annapurna, and this illustrated region is the Pokhara Valley. And in 2012, this is the largest scale event here. You can see this the photo capture from the video that I got in social media. You see the devastation of flood. It shows that this is the area that we go. And the Seti River was blocked somewhere, and then later on it crossed. See, you can compare the before the event and after the event. So you can just imagine what happened on the time. It was Saturday, and people were doing some recreational activities, and we lost. Today landslides. This is one of the examples where you can observe different cascading effect. One hazard triggers another hazard, and this is very unique. And we have studied this very carefully we found that there are multiple actions or multiple triggering factors are actually together in this region. You see in 2016 in Botekosi, if you compare two images here, this is the 2014 and this is the 2016 Google Earth image. Actually, there was a debris flow here, and then it's actually crossed the lake, and then this debris with the water with debris came down and then destroyed these offensive trees and downstream river. This published in Science in 2018, but I'll just show you one very interesting example. This is the first time that we have shown that that one single large event can change the landscape compared to the annual events. For example, if you look at different river widths in different years from 2011 to 2015, and then only in 2016 the river width changed from 29 meters to 41 meters. So actually, that event shows that one single event can change the whole dynamics, the whole landscape of the Himalayas. And that's why we have to be very, very careful while understanding this large scale mass movement in the Himalayas. So we proved that from this, this is our research. Melamsi is a very unique cascading hazards. The causes are different. Still, we are not pretty much sure, but you can see this is the very beautiful flat land. It's called Bremakan. And actually, when after this event, I went there for a couple of times, and we found that this is the paleo landslide deposit, and this white stuff is the recent event that deposited the sediments over there. So you can see when we went to Bremakan, you can see the deposition of these sediments over there, and it's a very deep pile of sediments, more than 10 to 15 feet sediments there. And so, but very interestingly, if you are interested in geomorphology, we can say that this midpoint is shifting. So erosion is moving forward or in the upstream direction. And that is the real threat for the people who are living to the downstream. And if you are really interested to understand this paleo landslide deposit, you can see the different horizontal layers that were deposited there. If you look very closely, you see the very, very interesting layers. And we have already taken the sample for vessel dating, and hopefully we'll have a result, and we can prove that when the past paleo landslide was deposited, and that actually gives you the understanding about why these large-scale events should be studied for the sustainable risk reduction in the Himalayas. And this is the drone image that we captured right during the event. You can see the scale of devastation and sedimentation on that beautiful valley. See, this is the picture. This is the before the event in the source area, and this is the after the event. So you can see just the top part of the site there. So you can just imagine the scale of thickness there. And this is the between Melamsi River before and after. You can see the scale of devastation. So these are the examples that you can easily understand the scale and the magnitude of this event, to show that why we should care about this natural hazards in the Himalayas. So just a recent example in Sikkim, Lunak Lake, you can see the different events in 17 September, 28 September, and 4 October. You see these glaciers are moving, and this lake was burst. And this just recent photograph shows that the side moraine actually collapsed here in the lateral moraine to the lake, and then the lake was burst. And then if you zoom in from this planet image, you can see this area just fell down, and then the result is here. You can see this is the before the Chungthang Dam, and this is the devastation that actually perhaps this whole 1200 megawatt dam, and then the result is this. So if you see from west to east, you can see the similar kind of events in the Himalayas. But very interestingly, that I'll show you here, and this is the very beautiful peaks of the Himalayas. And this the Mustan is a Kakbeni, which is a rain shadow zone. And if you look in Google Earth, this is the Kaligandaki River, and this is the Kakbeni Valley, this is the Kakpola, and Mukinathi is over here. If you look this Kakbeni village from another side, you see the very beautiful valley here. And all of a sudden, we observe the debris flow there, and you can see the devastation here. And then the people were speculating that, it might be due to the climate change, it might be due to other things. And I was puzzled on that time also, because, such kind of large event in the rain cyclone is very interesting. And then later we found that this video, which shows that it's a clearly landslide dam outburst plot. You can see this video that captured by local people over there, just right upstream from the Kakbeni. So you see the flood. It's actually the river was blocked by landslide, and then it broke. So you see the scale of devastation. So the scale of the debris flow event in a very narrow, small river. And that also proved by the gauging station that we have in the Johnson. Yeah, so you can see that the level of water, flow reduction in the Kaligandaki will show that the river was blocked actually. So these are some of the events that actually affect the hydropower that we are witnessing. So this is one example in 1985. So some of the events are the pictures that you can see how these events are destroying our critical infrastructures. So at the end, we published a paper in 2021. It shows that all these events shows that these events are in cascading nature, and one triggered another one. And if you look the cartoon that we prepared from the higher Himalayas to the flatland, you can see the different geophysical events, and then the natural hazards, and then the critical infrastructures that are being affected by this community. So for way forward, infrastructure resilient without considering climate change is no longer option in the Nepal Himalaya or in the whole Indus Himalayan chain. And I suggest to establish the hydrometric station at 3,000 meters so that we can understand the events. And then the understanding of glacial lake outburst flood is crucial. And then the preparation of impact-based multi-hazard forecasting system should be in place. I'll conclude my talk with this picture. This is the Melamchi water intake area, which was destroyed by this Melamchi debris. And then it shows that the negligence that we are doing to understand the natural hazards events in the Himalayas is really, really paying off. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All the events out of the this is quite interesting because what we call soft science and hard science, the education of these things. So the challenges in the Himalayas is that people from the high altitude are moving downstream or in the flatland, so that the indigenous knowledge that even they have to place this event in the higher altitude is losing. So we are losing this knowledge. The one study I did in the whole chain in the Kaligandaki Valley, actually, from to Lamangkat, what we found from understanding the natural hazards, actually they could guess. They explained me some kind of some techniques or their experiences how to understand this kind of changing climate and then these landslide occurrences or changing climate. But introducing this indigenous knowledge to the new scientific understanding is quite challenging
because most of the time in Nepal, people are more fatalist and they don't want to integrate these things to the scientific understanding, and they don't want to understand the scientific knowledge in their daily life. But for the scientists, like people who are working in the scientific field, we can actually generate the information from the field to validate and to to validate the model actually. For example, in the debris flow modeling, you only study about the water. It doesn't make sense. But while you go to the field and these people are saying, oh, we have already witnessed not only the water, the sediments are always flowing there in this water, but our model are all only taking care of this clean water. So that's why we need to understand these things and integrate and validate our model. Thank you very much. Getting me? You can make yourself. Please unmute yourself. Indira, please join us. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, it was mute by you, so I was unable to talk.
Sorry for what's incoming. Now, may I invite Indira Potil.
So, should I start?
15 minutes time.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. I'm unable to hear the voice very clearly.
Okay.
Okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Indira Paudel. Currently, I'm a research scientist in Department of Global Ecology, Carnegie Institute of Science in USA. Currently, I'm here in Nepal and family vacation, and I use this opportunity to share my past research, and thank you for allowing me to present. So today I'm presenting in plant adaptation to environmental change, where, what, how, and how should we prepare for the future. So as we know that all living things can change to fit their environment. For example, plants can detect any kind of the responses like animals, like we human beings. And then they react accordingly in the short term, while in the longer term, these responses will change to the kind of acclimation or adaptation strategies. For example, here, I think when we were in growing up, we used to play with the toss me not plant, and like when we toss, they react very immediately, and then they close their leaf. So these are the kind of some of the plant responses that help them to acclimate in the different environment. So what is acclimation? I think the Achut Tiwari's lecture was talk was very relevant for me. So adaptation means it's kind of like inherited characteristic that help any organism to survive long enough to the newer environment, and then they can reproduce their offspring in the new environment after they acclimate. And they have like many various plants have various strategy to cope with or to develop the adaptation strategies. For example, the one of the strategy they develop is the behavior strategies. For example, cactus, we all know that this is a desert plant. In general, all the plant they photosynthesize during the day, but cactus photosynthesize during the night in order to protect water loss during photosynthesis. At the same time, vine or all the climbers, they use trees in order to get light from the upper canopy in the forest. So these are the kind of like behavioral adaptation of the plant species according to their existing environment. So other kind of adaptation is structural adaptation. The structural adaptation means like the physical feature of the plant organism, they change or them to the growing environment. Like Tiwa research says that plant develop or change their anatomical structure. For example, when there is lower water available, they will build narrow xylem vessels, or they will change thickness of the vessels or tracheas, and these are in the anatomical level. In the morphological level, they can change the root growth, diameter, or morphology, or the foraging habit within the soil. Then I think a lot of tropical forest species, they have a pointed leaf because there is a lot of rain in the tropical forest. So that is also the behavior structural strategy to adapt to the new environment. While in the drier or the Mediterranean environment, they have like thick and short leaf, so that they can minimize water loss during the in general. So these are the some of the structural adaptation to the plant to the newer environment. So another kind of adaptation that both behavioral and then structural adaptation lead them to build another stage of adaptation, which is functional adaptation. It is more like adaptation in the ionic, biochemical, or enzymatic to up to genetic level in the existing environment, and which create changes within the cell of the organism or its membrane. For example, here membrane protein, which is called aquaporin, or the stomata, they adapt in the existing environment. Which these are the kind of like functional adaptation trait. So this adaptation strategy help plant to adapt to newer environment. Just a minute. But not all the plant have ability to adapt to the newer environment. That made the plant either die, or they have to move to the new places. For example, in the European forest, the excess forest mortality have been observed because a lot of the European forest was historically wet forest because it's a temperate region and there were enough water, but because of global warming, and then heat wave, there is like the extreme heat wave event has been increased in the European forest, and then that has been leading those forests have been dying much more than the past years. So one of the reasons they die is because they were unable to adapt in the new environment. Similarly, one of the recent study that have done in the US National Climate Change Assessment, they have found that Eastern United States has compared to past, a lot of species have moved more northward, north means from United States to the Canadian side, because the Eastern United States is also experience a much drier growing season, and that has been lead the species move to the more wetter and cooler part of the North America. So these are the kind of consequences in a larger scale because of the lack of adaptation in the plant species. And here I am now connecting with my research during my PhD, which I did in Israel. We checked how different soil environment and then water quality, which is treated wastewater irrigation. Israel has almost 70% of the city water they recycle in the agriculture. And so I was using treated wastewater and then different soil type to see how the nursery grown seedlings that we transfer to the different soil type will have the growth strategies or whole plant responses over the 2 years period in sandy loam soil and heavy clay soil. The heavy clay soil is like almost 70% clay material, while sandy loam soil is very like I think it's around 10% only the clay. So it was very good arable soil in terms of root growth or the plant growth. And what we found after 2 years is the root water uptake, or we call sap flux. After 2 years, the same plant, same material that we transport in the two different soil type, their growth, their water uptake capacity is completely different. And then you can see in the heavy clay soil, the water uptake was much more lower compared to the sandy loam soil. And then when we irrigated with recycled water, this is the two-stage recycle water, and then after it's called tertiary treated wastewater, which usually have more salinity compared to the fresh water. And this, after 2 years of irrigation with treated wastewater, has also different responses. So these responses are kind of like this. The responses between soil type particularly is because of the adaptation in new environment like soil environment, while the water quality response is mostly, I think, that it is the salinity responses. And let's look more detail on the root, how two different soil type may affect the root growth structure. This root growth were followed by mini rhizoctone, which is the camera that we looked inside the root using, we insert the pipe inside the soil, and then we follow root growth whenever you want to follow. So this is the root growth that we looked using mini rhizoctone camera in two different soil, and you can see how healthy the roots are in the sandy loam soils. The root tips or the root tips is usually good for water or nutrient uptakes, while in the heavy clay soil, the root are very low, and then the thickness of the root or the root are bending because they has to cross the physical barrier of heavy clay. So these are the two kind of like structural or morphological adaptation over the 2 years of growth in the soil in two different soil environment. And so another study that I'm presenting here from when I was in Purdue University, United States. this is the study was done in the Big Island of Hawaii. The Big Island of Hawaii is kind of United States. The eastern United States is pretty flat area. So, but we had opportunity to have a research in the Big Island of Hawaii, where we have a kind of similar environment. It's also tropical island, and also elevation based research that we could do there. So here we took seed sources, or we call different population from this I think this is south side of the, not south side is here, I think the east side of the Hawaii, Big Island Hawaii, from 130 meter above sea level to 2000 meter sea level. We collect the seed, and then we used Purdue University growth sample, using the kind of like trying to mimic the same growth environment, which means in this island, the lower elevation had low light and then high nutrients, compared to high elevation, where high elevation have high light and low nutrients. This is because of a lot of reason. Is because of the cloud movement across the island, and then rainfall difference across the elevation. So we try to mimic the different light and then nutrient environment using this light protected. This is how we give different light environment. And let's see how they look like. So here I'm just presenting from the two elevation. Low elevation, which is 130 meter above sea level, then the high elevation, which is around 2000 meter above sea level. This is net photosynthesis rate. And this kind of like summary of this result. This is after 3 months of acclimation to that environment in the greenhouse, and we found that in a higher elevation, the effect of light is much higher compared to effect of nutrients. While in the lower elevation, the effect of nutrients, like if you reduce nutrients, the seedlings will have much more effect compared to light. So low elevation plant can adapt to low light environment, but high elevation plant cannot adapt to low light environment. And then similar, the kind of like opposite trend in case of nutrients as well.
Indra, your time is finished.
Okay, so this is the last slide where we have tested the effect of elevated CO2 and drought. This is more like the future climatic effect, and here we are giving 3 different CO2 level, and then we tested I think I will just give the summary that when we have high CO2, the effect of drought will be minimum. This is the 6 different treatment, and then we have like when there is a 850 ppm CO2 during the drought period, the effect was smaller. So this is kind of in future climate, there is some compensative effect of elevated CO2 in our tree species. So with that, I will give some take-home message that adaptation is the adjustment in behavior, function, and structure to better fit to their environment. Avoidance and tolerance are the significant adaptation responses, and rate of adaptation is various across the environmental stressor. I think this is all, and I would like to acknowledge all my research universities and institute from past 12 years. And with that, I would like to open for the question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We do not have time for question and answer because, sorry for disturbing, Indra, because we have time limitation for each speaker. If anyone has any query, please write it in the chat box. Later on, I will grab it. So that is. Now we go to the next presentation. Yeah, yeah. The next speaker is from Nigeria, Dr. Ibrahim Galadima. Ibrahim, are you on the screen? Please. Okay. So welcome to this presentation session. And he is going to talk on assessment of vulnerability and education to the impact of climate change in some parts of global state Nigeria. It's these bias states is given and these the particular ones that you can go to that. With this week. Request for the please, Dr. Ibrahim, start your presentation. You have 15 minutes time, including the question answer. Okay? Thank you. Yep. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute. Are you listening to me? Please, we are not getting your voice. Please, please, please. No, we are not listening your voice. Ibrahim, just wait. Perhaps you should unmute from your side.
Okay.
Okay. Now, please
Okay.
start.
Good morning, all. I'm Ibrahim Galadima Dagona from Department of Animal Quarantine Service, the Northeast Zonal Coordination Office here in Nigeria. Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hello? My network is epileptic. So the topic of discussion of my presentation is assessment of vulnerability and adaptation to the impact of climate change in some part of Yobe State, Nigeria. So vulnerability as it is being seen by Owa and Ellison, vulnerability involves the combination of economic, health, social, and political and environmental factors. The vulnerable groups, that is the poor, less and unemployed, the elderly, less privileged, and minorities. These are among the types of the vulnerable groups that are being found in the study. So this study is conducted around 2014, 2015, where we identified the vulnerable groups as disabled, the women, the children, and the elderly person, and even the unemployed persons are said to be one of the most vulnerable among our study, my study. So the vulnerability in Nigeria, the vulnerability hello. The audio has gone.
Yes, please continue.
Okay.
Right.
Vulnerability involves uh, involves
Maybe if there is problem with the internet.
women, children, the minorities, etc. Vulnerability involves the combination of, like I said earlier, combination of economic,
We are not listening to you. Ibrahim? That problem.
sorry, the network is epileptic, sorry. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Now, the vulnerable group, like I mentioned earlier, they are the poor, the landless, the unemployed, the elderly, the disabled, women, children, ethnic minorities, etc. are the disadvantaged groups that are in the worst situation that in majority of the population that is being identified. The next slide. Vulnerability in Nigeria rural settings. In Nigeria here, the vulnerable groups are made of they are the kinds of people that are being made less considered in the scheme of affairs of in the communities. Hence, they have problems of accessibility to resources in which they can sustain their livelihood, like that is has been said by Chikwendu 2006 and 5. Sorry. The next slide. In Nigeria, next slide. So in the materials and method, the study area was conducted in some villages in Yobe State, where the latitude in the latitude of 20 degrees north and longitude of 11 to 30 degrees east in the eastern part of the country, which is covering the land area of about 4,502 square kilometer with a population of 2,321,591 people. Like it is there in the National Population Census 2006. So, like it is clearly stated here in the diagram, Yobe State is located like the arrow is pointing there, where it is pointing where our research has taken place. Like the sources of that is according to early et al. 2011. So this is where Yobe State is located in the northeastern part of Nigeria, where it is considered as a sub-Saharan region of the country. Next slide. So the agroclimatic condition of the area, the soil is sandy, the annual temperature is 39 to 40 degrees Celsius. The mean rainfall fire is around 900 to 1,500 millimeter, which ends in October, depending on the year, while the hottest season is November and April. That is the hottest season of the year. The next slide. So the major crops that are being grown in the area, the climatic condition that favors the production of the wide variety of crops, which includes legumes, groundnut, beans, cereals, maize, millet, sorghum, and rice. The solanous crops like peppers, tomatoes, and garden eggs, they are among the major crops that have been produced in the area, in the country. Next one. Equally, the farm animals that are being reared in these areas, the state especially was said to have one of the largest cattle markets in the West African sub-region, coupled with other animals like camel, sheep, goats, and poultry farming. Next one. The methods that are being employed in getting the data in this research is a simple sampling techniques that was being employed using structured questionnaires to get the socio-demographic vulnerability and adaptation strategies on the impacts of climate change on the target groups. That was the method that is being administered to get the exact information from the target groups. Next slide. So the sampling techniques equally that is being applied. We use 6 villages. The villages of Dogona, that is the exact village where I come from, and Biokura, Fika, Town, Ingalda, Kalalawa, and Mesandari communities. These are the communities that we sampled in order to get the information of those target groups. That is forming the total of about 1,600 heads per household as the sample framework, of which the 10% of the sample frame that is being gotten is we sample people that are permanently residing in these areas, and that was chosen randomly. That is according to the respondents to form the sample size of 120 for these studies. Yeah, the next slide, sir. The data analysis. The data was collected and subjected to descriptive statistics to determine the proportion of the independent and dependent variables using SPSS statistical software IBM version 22 at 95% probability level. Next slide. So as it is been clearly stated based on this diagram, at the end of analysis, we are made to come and understand the number and the composition based on the respondents. Like I've said earlier, it was just the simple sampling techniques that applied in order to get the data. So based on this diagram, we can see the awareness of the vulnerable groups. About 68% are aware of vulnerable groups, while those that have equal access to information and skills constitute about 62.5%, and those that have control over critical resources that are being accessible in that areas is only 65%, and those that have equal rights to these resources are only 34%. So based on that, we can clearly say that those people with awareness of vulnerable groups are only 32.1%, and equally access to information and skills and other information that will make them to adapt to the impact of climate change in the area is equally very high. The number is very high. Equally, the control over the critical resources is actually bedeviling, and equally the access to right and access to resources is also 65%, which is mind-boggling. So based on these indicators, the vulnerability percentage as regards to the impact of climate change in the study area, that is specifically in Yobe State, is mind-boggling. So there's a need to act on the impact and to make people to know those impacts and to adapt to the impact of this climate change, especially in the areas like Yobe State, which have a high percentage of disadvantaged and less privileged people in the study area. Next slide. Discussion. About 69% of the response indicated women were the most vulnerable groups. And equally, the findings further revealed that the household do not work together to address those problems facing their community, being the vulnerable as indicated by 62% of the response. Maybe that has to do with maybe cultural, religious, or something. That is the reason why maybe they are not working together in order to overcome the problem of this climate change in that area, as it was gathered. Next slide. So the results also depicted that 64%, who are the majority of the respondents, held that they do not control over the critical resources as has been indicated in the diagram earlier, amongst the males and the females, while only 36% had the contrary view. And furthermore, 62 of the respondents suggested that women and other marginalized groups had no equal access to information, skills, and other services in their household, in their various households. Next slide. Conversely, about 66% held that there is no equal right among women and other marginalized vulnerable groups on the study area, while 34 had a different view, which gave reason that gender inequalities, social vulnerability, economic and political factors shape their ability and inability of those individuals in that area. Next slide. So as a matter of conclusion, the majority of these people that are being interviewed and discussed with revealed that the majority of these people affirmed that they lack the awareness and the information among their people based on their vulnerability, in which that expose that community to the impact of climate change. So therefore, the vast majority of people, as constitute about 75% of the respondents, held that climate change is affecting their community very seriously. So with this, I think we have come to the end of this presentation. But seriously here in Yobe State entirely it is ravaged with the issue of the crisis and what have you, this issue of Boko Haram and what have you. There are many people that are rendered so vulnerable to the extent that they cannot even sustain their living. So they are in a very serious situation, let alone to have that information to adapt to the impact of climate change. There's very serious need for a kind of assistance and what have you in order for them to adapt to the impact of climate change. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any queries in the chat box from the time? Please check it.
Pardon, sorry.
Is there any queries, questions in the chat box?
Well, actually, I encountered many problems before joining, so I missed many of the presenters
No
points.
problem.
So I have joined earlier than now. I encountered several problems before I joined the session. So for this, I don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your observation on the vulnerability in Nigerian rural
Okay.
sector.
Thank you.
Particularly the problems of accessibility of resources. You have
Yeah.
concluded 25% of the population that they are that changing climate is affecting their resources.
Yes.
And people, 1/3 of the population, they said that the equal right and access to resources are very limited. Is it?
Yes. Yes.
These are very significant observations. Thank
Okay.
you very much for your presentation and hope to see you again sometimes.
Thank you.
Hopefully in Nepal. Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm honored.
Yes, we have come to the end of this session. There were 4 presentations related to the climate change, forest and biodiversity. All 4 speakers related to forest and biodiversity with the climate change and how to decide upon the natural hazards occurring due to the climate change. The 4th presenter, the event for Nigeria, he emphasized upon the constraint of resources because of the changing climate. In these observations, so we all know that climate change is affecting forest and biodiversity. The forests are not only shrinking in their shape and size, its composition and distribution are affected seriously by the climate change.
Yes.
We all realize that biodiversity is under serious threat under the changing climate.
Yeah. Yes.
And not only biodiversity loss is occurring, but at the same time, the threat of biological invasion is increasing under the changing climate. So that is another, nowadays it is one of the most serious threat. Biological invasion has emerged as a very serious threat under because of the changing climate.
Yeah.
Also as a very serious cause and effect of climate change.
Yes.
We talk about the composition and the distribution, but at the same time, we all have observed the behaviors of species, including human beings, with changing because of climate change.
Yes.
Because some of the serious consequences of biological climate change, we should give serious attention, not only the scientists, but the policymakers should also give serious attention to this serious issue.
Yes.
So concluding remarks, I really
Thank you.
all the four speakers for their very nice presentation and to the
Okay.
party for their participating. Thank you very much. And with
Thank
this,
you very much.
5 minutes break. And after that, 4:25 at least time we will be into the day. So after 5 minutes, we will be able to. Okay, is it all right? Paulo Artax, so it is in the inaugural session. His name is in the inaugural session at the end. Paulo Artax, so keynote address, global climate change. We have the program.
Thank you, Professor Upreti. May I proceed now?
Yeah, but the presentation is by Professor Paulo Artaxo, who is already there as a keynote speaker. He was not available earlier, so now he is there. We have the program.
I have noted it down, sir. Thank you so much.
You can also introduce.
Welcome, everyone. This is Dinesh Bhuju from Kathmandu. Presently, I am moderating this very important session on behalf of TWAS-NAST International Conference from a room of National Innovation Center at Tribhuvan University. This National Innovation Center is a pro bono initiative, and I'm using the facility here to chair this session. My heartfelt thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this very important conference. Just to lay down a background scenario, let me remind all of you, the participants, the scholars, research scientists in the conference, that climate change is a serious problem. Let me repeat, climate change is a serious problem. It's a question of humanity's existence or extinction, whether you accept or not. Then, $1 million question is that what could be the solution to such a very serious problem? There are, in general, two opinions or the two views. The first is changing the human behavior. And the second is technical solution, which we normally say adaptation and mitigation. The first opinion or view is advanced by those who advocate for collective social action, because the climate change is not by others, but by the activities of the human beings, especially in Anthropocene, after the Industrial Revolution. While the second view is advanced by those who advocate to continue to see the human prosperity through the massive utilization, or in my word, exploitation of natural resources. So this session is dedicated to the theme, climate change strategy and impacts. For clarity, let me rephrase it. Climate change strategies to mitigate its impacts. And we have three distinguished scholars presenting their presentations. Before that, we have a keynote address, which we could not include in the opening session. So with your kind consent, let's invite Professor Paulo Artaxo for his keynote address. The title of his keynote address, as you must have seen, is Global Climate Change and its Impact on Tropical Forest. Professor Artaxo is chair of the TWAS Standing Committee on Climate Change. And he is a professor of environmental physics at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. So with this very brief introduction, let's invite Professor Artaxo for his long-waiting keynote address. Professor Artaxo, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dinesh, for this introduction. I will share my screen. So basically, I think everybody can see my screen. So basically, I will call the attention of the importance of preserving tropical forest for the future of climate change. So basically, I think it's important to see that science it's warning societies and governments since the Stockholm United Nations Conference on the Human Environment that already happened 50 years ago, so in 1972. So basically, science warned governments, companies, and the society of the danger of climate change, what the impacts climate change could have in the society quite a long time ago. And then there was the Rio 92 conference on sustainable development that started the SDGs. There was the Rio +20 conference. Then we had the COP27, COP26, and in a few weeks we'll have COP28 without actually see any important change of trajectory in the history of greenhouse gas emissions and its impact. On the right here, you see basically that since the average global temperature record since 1880 until 2021, and you see that after the 70s from last century, we can easily observe a very, very large increase in temperature as we are observing right now. So basically the raw reason for that is that the global emissions of the greenhouse gases are continuing to rise at a rate of about 2 to 4% a year, even after the COVID pandemic. And basically, even after Paris Agreement, we are being unable to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for a number of reasons that we can discuss later. That emissions are increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases like the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, that we see are increasing significantly. CO2 have increased by 66%, methane has increased by 259%, and nitrous oxide by 123%. So basically, one single species, that the human beings, are changing the atmospheric composition with a lot of different impacts. So basically, from the emissions we have today, 17% of the total emissions are coming from the deforestation of tropical forest, 83%, the large majority of emission, came through fossil fuel emissions. So basically, this is how we stand today. So in terms of impacts of this on temperature, the latest IPCC report is very clear on this issue. So basically you see here on the left, the average temperature record for the last 2,000 years. And we are right here with an increase of 1.2 degrees in terms of average temperature. And the last time that the temperature in the planet was at this level was in the latest interglacial period that was 100,000 years ago. So even if you look in the last 50 years, you can see global warming very, very, very easily. So we can also see by the increase in climate extremes that 2023 was a very, very important year in terms of climate extremes. And what about the future? IPCC models predict the future according to different scenarios, and a scenario of a business as usual like we are having today will bring the average global climate temperature of about 4.3 degrees. If you follow the Paris Agreement like we are following right now, very loose implementation of Paris Agreement, this will bring an increase in temperature of 3.7 degrees. And if you apply strict control of emissions according to the Paris Agreement, we will have a temperature equilibrium in the second part of this century of about 2.8 degrees. So you see, we are very far from 1.5 to 2 degrees as agreed in the Paris Agreement. So basically, this will be mission impossible, as you're going to see very easily soon, that we cannot reach anymore 1.5 degrees. So basically, in terms of the global average, this is what you saw in the previous slide. In this slide, it shows the geographical distribution of this heating, and this is most important, because even if you allow the planet to increase in temperature by 4 degrees, most of the South America will actually heat up by 5 to 5.5 degrees. The same with large parts of Africa, Middle East, and Canada and Siberia and the boreal forest can heat up by 6 to 6.5 degrees. So you see that this will bring tremendous difficulties for our society over the next decades. So you see that the continental areas that heat up much more than the global average, of course, will have very, very important impacts in health, in the economics, in the social issues, in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals right over the next decades. But temperature is not the only important climate variables. Precipitation is also an important variable, and you see that most of the Central and North-South America will see a reduction in precipitation that is very significant, as well as the southern part of Africa, Mediterranean Europe, and north of Africa, as well as Central America. So these regions will suffer a strong reduction in precipitation that will certainly affect ecosystems, including tropical forest, as well as reduction in our capability to produce food. So basically, we can see that the changes here will bring much less soil humidity. That shows that Brazil, for instance, that's a large food production in the world. It's the 50 or 60 largest food producer, will have significant difficulties in continuing in this position. So, and we have to find ways to feed 10 billion people in 2050 in this challenging climate in the world. Another important climate impact is the increase in extreme weather. That is, in 2023, was a very, very strong feature. So basically, we saw in 2021, temperatures like 48 degrees in Canada. We'll see very large floods in Germany. We saw 52 degrees in California. We saw lots of forest fires in Europe. So in general, the impact is being very significant. And in 2023, you see here on the left, that is the air temperature for the average 20 years before 2023 and the temperature in 2023 in this black line. So you see, we are well above 3 sigma in terms of the temperature variability for the last 20 years. And then we also see the temperature anomaly hitting large increases in temperature for many, many areas that includes Europe, North America, South America, parts of Africa, and so on. And this last plot here shows the North Atlantic sea surface temperature. So you see the huge increase in sea surface temperature as well as in the atmosphere. So basically, this has very important socioeconomic impact affecting human health in a very significant way. And basically, we see what is the future for the climate extremes. So IPCC have done simulations for that and shows that one event that happened once in a 50-year time frame before the Industrial Revolution, if we will allow the system to heat up by 4 degrees, will be 39 times more frequent and will be 5 times stronger. So basically, we are already in these scenarios of the IPCC. Amazonia is having the more severe drought in the last 133 years, right now in 2023. So we are seeing this impact all over the place. And what about the forests, tropical forests in this scenario? So basically, from the sources of greenhouse gases in terms of the global carbon project, forests are important first from the deforestation component, that is 11%, but as well, forests are responsible to sequester 29% of all CO2 we release into the atmosphere because of the photosynthesis. So basically, forests are making a very important ecosystem service, capturing back CO2 emitted by fossil fuel at 29% of all emissions. And that is very, very important. So, but forests also have a large of uncertainty, so science needs to understand better the role of forest in climate change through better quantification of selective logging, wildfires, forest degradation, and also in terms of sinks, we need better to quantify the role of secondary forests in capturing atmospheric CO2, as well as the role of degraded forest. So basically, we'll see that science has a lot yet to understand the role of tropical forest. And it's important to understand that the forests are a huge carbon storage in the Earth's ecosystems for both the boreal forest, the temperate forest, the grassland, the tropical forest, wetlands, tropical savannas. All of them are important. And most of the carbon is actually in these forest ecosystems stored in the soil. So you need better to learn how to preserve the carbon in the soil. And certainly achieving net zero in 2050 will depend strongly on Earth's natural carbon sinks, And Amazonia is particularly critical for that because Amazonia contains 120 billion tons of carbon in the ecosystem. This is equivalent to 10 years of all greenhouse gas emission by fossil fuel. So it's a huge pool of carbon that should not be released to the atmosphere. And the mechanisms of the release of this carbon and the sequestering of this carbon from the atmosphere is very complex. It starts, of course, with the photosynthesis that is controlled by a large number of enzymes who have evolved over the last million years to operate in a certain temperature range. And we are changing this temperature for tropical forests, bringing the photosynthesis of many tree species outside their optimum functioning temperature range. But as well, we have forest respiration, we have fire and disturbance in the forest, as well as the role of soil that is as important as the part of the forest that we see that are actually the trees. So basically, we need an integrated view of how to preserve the carbon stocks in tropical forests. But tropical forestry is not just carbon, but also tropical forests are critical for energy and water balance. Basically, the evapotranspiration from tropical forests are extremely important for the hydrological cycle everywhere. And Amazonia and climate change are interacting in two different processes. The first one is the emissions of carbon by deforestation that feeds up global climate change, but the reverse is also true and is as important in effect like the first one. So global climate change, that means increasing temperature and also decreasing precipitation over tropical areas are impacting the tropical forests like Amazonia, bringing degradation of the forest that evokes more release of carbon to the atmosphere, bringing a positive feedback that can make that scenarios of IPCC even worse. And it's important that this pool of carbon be maintained into this tropical ecosystem, also because they are very important in terms of ecosystem services like evapotranspiration, maintenance of tropical albedo, and many other essential ecosystem services. But a series of papers are showing that the tropical forests are in danger. So if you look for this paper published in Science, shows that the thermal sensitivity of Earth's tropical forest has a rather low threshold to start the process of losing carbon to the atmosphere. According to this paper, this threshold is about 32 degrees, and many areas of Amazonia is already approaching or above this threshold. And Amazonia is the threshold where the carbon stocks would be most impacted by the increase in temperature. The African forests are much more resilient to this increase in temperature, but the Southeast Asia forests have a quite similar sensitivity for losing the carbon as we have in Amazonia. So basically, we clearly see that all the tropical forests in the three major tropical areas are suffering impacts from climate, from increase in climate. So, and in Amazonia, we are observing that the changes in the hydrological cycle are making the dry season length increasing strongly by 6 days per decade over the last 30 30 years. So basically, we are increasing the length of the dry season. That makes biomass burning and the burning of the forest is easier, and making emissions of greenhouse gases even larger than in normal conditions. And we are also observing that large parts of Amazonia are suffering increasing vapor pressure deficit. That's an indicator that the forest is losing its capacity to make evapotranspiration. That actually happens when the stomata of the leaves basically open up to allow photosynthesis and CO2 to enter and water vapor to escape from plant tissue. So this makes a reduction in CO2 uptake and a reduction in water vapor out for the atmosphere. So we already can measure it by satellite, the increase in VPD, as we'll call this, evapotranspiration from Amazonia. And another important paper in Nature combining the carbon sink saturation in African and Amazonian tropical forests shows that since the 90s, from last century, we are observing a decrease in carbon sinking in Amazonia, but you are not see a similar decrease in carbon sinking over African forest, at least for this paper, for this methodology. So basically, we need more studies on African forest to understand better how is the sensitivity of the forest to climate change. Another important studies in Amazonia shows that the title of this paper shows very clearly that the carbon loss from forest degradation caused by climate change is already larger than the deforestation emissions in the Brazilian Amazon. So basically, you see that most of the Amazonian region, not just the region associated with deforestation, is losing carbon to the atmosphere, and more studies are necessary for the African and Southeast Asia to understand better the constraints of this forest degradation. And the IPCC models for the future make the forecast for Amazonia and the tropical forest shows that the carbon uptake responses to climate warming for Amazonia could be a reduction in -1 kilograms of carbon for every square meter of forest for every degree Celsius of warming. And we again see that the tropical forest in Africa are more resilient than the tropical forest in South America. So basically, we have to understand the mechanisms why this happens. So in a paper in Nature, the cover paper of Nature of a few weeks ago shows that the tropical forests are approaching critical temperature thresholds. And their conclusions, I copied their conclusions from the paper, suggesting that a tipping point in metabolic function, I mean, controls of enzymes from photosynthesis in tropical forests, could occur with the 3.9 degrees of additional warming. And this is consistent with the 4 or 5 papers we saw that I presented previously, showing that the tropical forest will need very important efforts to in terms of preservation. So basically, now going to the end of my presentation, I think another important message is that the cheapest, easier, and faster way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is to stop tropical deforestation. So basically, by far, is the best way society have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions with a lot of benefits from maintenance of ecosystem services. So to avoid the scenarios like this, we have to work on preserving the tropical forest, and science have a tremendous role in helping society developing the best way to preserve tropical forest. And then I think it's important to call the attention that we need an integrated view of mitigation and adaptation of climate change. That it could include the climate change drivers from the energy sector, from the industry, from transportation, agricultural practice, and so on, to the climate change effects that are already hitting very hard our planet, from the alteration of soil biodiversity, increase in temperature, acidification from the ocean, sea level rise that will have a very large impact on coastal area, also to the mitigation of climate change, providing clean and renewable energy, to provide the strategies for carbon capture and storage, and many other strategies for mitigation, as well as the last and important component that is climate change adaptation. We have to adapt to the new climate. The new climate is already with us right now, and the society have a very important sensitivity for the different climate we have today compared to a few decades. So basically, we needed to adapt, we needed to deal with the impacts of climate change to all the drivers, as well as mitigation of emissions. And then IPCC have this very important diagram, shows that we are right here in 2023, and what you are going to do in this decade.
Professor Artaxo,
yeah,
would you mind to conclude gradually, because we are running out of time? I'm sorry to disturb, please.
Yeah, we are in the very last slide. So basically, what you're going to do in the next 10 years, we will define the trajectory for a high emissions or a low emissions, a transition to a new system, to a low climate risk. And this decade is absolutely critical, and I hope TWAS can help to drive the science necessary to define the best strategy. So basically, I will skip the last slide, and I think that is very clear from my presentation that the future of tropical forest is closely linked, actually, to our planet's future. And I hope in the next COP28 in Dubai, that we start in a few weeks, we will have a strategy to reduce tropical deforestation, as well as reducing fossil fuel burning in the very near future, preserving our climate. Thank you very much for the attention of everybody, and I congratulate the organizers for this very, very nice workshop.
Thank you so much, Professor Paulo Artaxo. And we are very happy that you could make it, and we are really obliged to you, though we wake you up early in the morning there in Sao Paulo. So as he concluded, the future of tropical forest is the future of this planet. So with this note, we conclude his session here. And I would like to move on the next presentations, because we are running out of time. And if we are left with some time, definitely we will invite some questions or the opinions at the end. So with this, once again, thanking Paulo Artaxo for his presentation. Now we move into the 3 presentations. The first one is by Dr. Abdullah Harun Chowdhury from Bangladesh. I hope he is already presented in the room, conference room. And secondly, by Dr. Beene Dobo, all the way from Ethiopia. And finally, Dr. Stuti Jain of India. Is Dr. Abdullah Harun Chowdhury present in the room?
No,
please give me a...
Go to the next presentation.
So he...
Before that,
it seems...
Okay.
So while we wait for him, I would like to invite Dr. Beena Dobo Bono from Ethiopia. Is Dr. Bono in the room? Please indicate us. Dr. Bono? Yeah, he is there. Thank you so much, Dr. Bono. Dr. Bono is an accomplished professional with an impressive educational background, including a 2-year college diploma in biology, chemistry from Kotobe College of Teacher Education. And he has studied at the Makhnitkov State University of Odessa, Ukraine, which is a very hot name in the present world. And also he has higher diploma license from Debov University and Doctor of Philosophy in Soil Science from Haramaya University. And his title of the presentation is, as you must have checked, is Effect of Biofertilization or and Organic Fertilizer Amendments and MPSB fertilizer application on growth and yield of Mesa pulses faba bean, that is Vicia faba, and Haricot bean, that is Phageolus vulgaris, in salt-affected soil. So with this very short introduction of Dr. Dobo, I would like to invite him for his presentation. Please, Dr. Dobo, you have 15 minutes for your presentation. 15 minutes. Dr. Dobo.
If he wants she wants to put his legs by himself.
Please unmute yourself.
Dr. Dobo, are you facing any problem? Please take your time, no problem.
Yeah, unmute yourself, sir.
Let's give him some time because sometimes, it's quite tricky.
Yeah, excuse me, sir. Could you please ask him whether we have to play this slide or he will play it by himself? Because we have this presentation.
Dr. Dobo, you are still muted. Dr. Dobo, you are still muted. You can unmute yourself by clicking still muted. By the way, in the meantime, I just want to confirm if Dr. Stuti Jain is in the room. Dr. Stuti Jain, are you in the room? Please raise your hand and inform us. Dr. Jain, are you there?
She will present tomorrow sometime.
Pardon?
But he will present tomorrow. Because she is also not here. She has not reached yet. She's supposed to come in person.
So Dr. Jain will present only tomorrow, not today.
Not today. Yes.
Did I hear correctly?
Exactly. She will present tomorrow.
Your voice is breaking, madam.
Yeah, she will present tomorrow.
Okay. And what about Dr. Chowdhury? Is he also making presentation late?
Was supposed to be today, but we are unable to contact him. He is not there in the room. He has not joined the meeting yet. So I think October is Dr. Dogo is the last presenter for today's session. So
Okay.
he can
Asked to unmute. By the way, I'm requesting the host if he or she can unmute Dr. Dobo.
Yeah, is it now visible?
Finally, he is visible and also he is audible. Thank you so much, Dr. Dobo.
Okay, now and I can go. Can I go now?
Please go ahead. Please.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. This is the work done in Hawassa University of Ethiopia. As you have already mentioned, the title is Effect of Biofertilization, Organic Fertilizer Amendments, and NPSB Application on Growth and Yield of Major Pulses. That means pulses that are primarily used in Ethiopia, faba bean, haricot bean, and the two major pulses, faba bean and haricot bean, in acidic and salt-affected soils. Here, acidic soils were also done together, but when preparing the slide, I mean the article, I have already selected only the salt-affected soils. So maybe you can observe throughout the presentation that some part of the acidic soils are also included. So the presentation outline is this one: introduction, objectives, materials and methods, results and discussion, and conclusion and recommendation. So these are the two major pulses that I am going to present: the faba bean and the haricot bean. So the major objective here is
Dr. Dobo.
Yeah.
Dr. Dobo,
yeah.
Would you mind to display your presentation?
Is it not displayed?
Yeah, it's not displayed, unfortunately.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, you just go there and go to the share.
Okay. Wait a minute.
No problem. Take your time, please. No hurry.
Okay, here is share. Is it now
Yes.
visible? Is it visible?
Not yet, sir.
Wait. Share screen.
Yes.
Now is it
Have
visible?
Have you opened the? Not yet. Have you opened the presentation?
Yeah.
Is it on desktop?
Yes.
Good. And then please share it.
Wait, and then
share screen. Yes.
Yes. Is it now visible?
Not yet, sir.
Oh. Wait a moment.
Have you found
Yes,
the?
Can you hear me?
Azur, sir.
You ask him to send his slides to me, then we can present it from here. If he's on, is not successful. If he is not successful, let him send the.
That's great idea. That's
Yeah.
great idea, Dr. Dobo.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have the email address of Professor B.N. Upreti. Do you have it?
I think so. Wait. Is it visible now?
Then, not yet, sir. Maybe there is some technical problem. So the best way is to share your slides by email with Professor B.N. Upreti.
Good. Let me look at it. So Can we
Do you
make
have
it?
his?
I don't
you
I don't think so. I don't have it.
So can you see the chat box? I will send you the email address of Professor B.N. Upreti. Is it okay?
We are
Okay.
Can you check, please? One person, please. Could you please check the, just a moment, chat, where is chat? Host only, oh no, I cannot.
You cannot do it, yeah?
Chat, yeah, I have. Now I'm doing it, just a moment. I'm trying to find out Dobo.
Dobo, yeah.
Where is Dobo? Dobo. I don't see Dobo here.
Yeah.
Dr. Dobo, we are sending you an email. Please answer to that. Just reply that email and attach your presentation. So Professor Upreti had just sent you a mail. So please reply to that. You received the mail, Dr. Dobo?
It's wonderful that from the Brazilian Amazonia, and please put your opinion or your questions if you have in your mind to Dr. Artaxo. Professor Artaxo, are you here?
Oh, yes.
Okay, let me start. So, I really appreciate your presentation and showing us the role of Amazonia, role of the tropical forest there. But beside the Amazonia, beside the tropical forest, there are large ecosystems in the world, like the ocean itself, and also the Himalaya is there, and the Andes is there, and also the Rockies are there, and Alps are there. Don't you think they have equal role in the mitigating or in enhancing the climate change at the present scenario? What's your opinion? Why do you give such an importance to the tropical forest only?
Yeah, there is one important reason. The first one is that tropical forests have very large carbon stocks, as I mentioned in my presentation. So only in Amazonia, we have about 120 billion tons of carbon stored in the ecosystem. And if this carbon is mobilized to the atmosphere by climate change, it will have a positive feedback that could be very important. But it's important to note that other ecosystems are equally important in terms of societal benefits and have other important impacts on climate on the society. That does not mean that you have to protect only the tropical forest, of course, but boreal forests are also very important. Mountain ecosystems are critical for the hydrological cycle, and every individual ecosystem has its ecosystem services and is essential for part of the population of our world. So basically, certainly, we have to work on preserving all ecosystems, protecting them, and developing strategies to preserve their ecosystem services to our society. Oh, you is mute, Dinesh.
I am promoted.
Could you turn your microphone on, Dinesh? You is muted.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Professor Jha?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pramod Jha, you would like to put a question here now? Please.
Thank you very much for the very enriching presentation. It was very, very informative. The last answers was for all. It's not for only the tropical forests, but all. That we should keep it. It's very important way to reduce the heat emissions to stop deforestation. This message everyone should take. There were other messages. Now, as a climate change, climate change committee chair, may I request you to just highlight the 2-3 activities that committee has undertaken. May I request you for that?
I could not understand fully the question. Can you?
Yeah, we have the TWAS Climate Change Standing Committee. So may I request you to say a few words about that committee? What are the activities?
Oh, yeah.
I am also a member, so I think it will be better if you highlight that.
Yeah, I think developing countries, needed to engage much more in the science of global climate change. I participate in the last 4 IPCC reports, and basically you see a very small participation of scientists from developing countries. This is the first thing. And the second thing, we see that the science and the literature that we produce in developing countries are very underrepresented into the IPCC report. So basically the science we do does not reach scientists that are writing the IPCC report, and we need strategies to change that. This is the first thing. The second thing is that developing countries are especially vulnerable to climate change impacts, not just the extremes, but as well as the socioeconomic impacts. So we need to develop ourselves, developing countries, not to wait for the developed countries to develop for us the correct and the best strategy to minimize the impacts of climate change in our societies. And every individual regions of the world, every individual society, every individual country have specific issues that needs to be addressed to minimize the damage to our societies from climate change. So basically, I think that the TWAS Standing Committee on Climate Change has these particular roles that are very, very important in my point of view. And I hope that we will help to promote the science of climate change in developing countries, as well as develop a strategy to minimize the impacts of climate change in our developing countries' society.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there any more question from the audience? Please raise your hand. It looks like, oh, okay, here I found Professor Maske. Professor Maske, please.
Professor Paulo, it was a fantastic presentation. It was very eye-opening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Question rather interest is how Sahara Desert and the Amazonia forest balance each other as a regulatory body. And somewhere I read, I think I forgot where, there is one case once upon a time Sahara was forested and it became deforested. And because of that, Amazonia has a lot of forest. Now, if Amazonia is anthropogenically deforested, will it happen that Sahara will get afforested naturally? And again, the balance is established. May this take a lot of time probably, but I don't know if that is true. What is your opinion?
Yeah, this is not included in any of the IPCC model simulations because the models only do climate simulation, let's say for the next 100 to at most the next 300 years. After that, the uncertainty is so large on what will happen with the climate of our planet that is absolutely unreliable to make any projections for more than 300 years. But of course, as you mentioned, the afforestation of an ecosystem like Sahara can help, but in a time scale of millions of years, as well as Amazonia forest can change naturally the climate, let's say, for the next million of years. But we are dealing right now is what will happen in the next 10 years, 50 years, or 100 years. I think that is our task, and I think that we are passing to a very critical time frame in human history, and we have to solve the climate emergency as quickly as possible and with the smaller possible damage to developing countries.
Thank you so much for this.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for your kind response to the question. I think let's move on. And finally, I would like to once again invite presenter Dr. Beene Dobo, if he's in the room. Because I see a tag here, presenter. Dr. Dobo, are you there? Dr. Dobo? Dr. Dobo, are you there in any other name other than Beene Dobo? Because I don't see Beene Dobo in the room. So it looks like he was quite disappointed that he could not share his slides, so he must have left. So anyway, we are already at the end of the program because the time given us is almost in. It's 5:30 Kathmandu. So once again, I would like to thank the co-organizers for giving me this opportunity. And as we have presentations, one of the best presentations that I would say are the keynote address by Paulo Artaxo, the chair of the TWAS Standing Committee on Climate Change. He started his presentations by reminding us the conference in Stockholm in 1972, and he explained the importance of the Amazonia and how we have to preserve it for what purpose. So at the conclusion, may I reiterate that while the social scientists are to find out ways for a collective action, because the climate change is not only a natural change, but it's mainly because of the human behavior. So we have to change the behavior of the humanity. So while the social scientists find out ways to collective action for the behavior change of humanity, the natural scientists, most of whom I see here, they have to work to understand the behavior of the climate and also its pattern while digging out the solution, no matter for short term, before the humanity loses its endurance. Because we know that the only way, the only long-term solutions of this problem is to live in harmony with nature. So with this, I would like to conclude this session and hand over it to the host of the organization. Professor Upreti or Professor Pikeja, please over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Dinesh Raju, for such a wonderful session organized by you. And I would again like to thank all the speakers in the sessions. It was very, very enlightening. And with the remark that we feel really sorry that Professor Abdullah Harun Chaudhry could not join us at this time because we had some electricity problem there. And maybe tomorrow we will give a lecture in session 4. And then, and I feel sorry for Dr. Dobo also, the same way. So would like to thank all the speakers and the chair for this session, and we will meet tomorrow. So we will conclude this first day meeting here. I think it was enlightening for the youngsters and youngsters will have definitely enjoyed eye-opening sessions or eye-opening lectures. Thank you so much for everyone. Thanks for all the presenters and the attendants. Who all has participated. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.